Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Smudcast number 667, Why the Proud Warrior Race is Doomed to Extinction. And this is from the Templin Institute on YouTube. This came out in May of this year. Has about 161,000 views. And I'm not sure what to expect. We were just talking about these guys and their weird videos and what they make and what they talk about. We might even just quit this video. It might be a waste of time. It might be a bunch of gobbledygook. I have no idea what to expect because I've never watched any of their crap. So I'm assuming the worst because the previous video we covered, I was like, yeah, there's some theoretical possibilities of using a feminist lens on interpreting stories. And it's like, oh, no, it's just a bunch of socialist bullshit. So in this case, I don't know what to expect. And this feels like not a grade schooler, but like a fanboy of like, I'm going to watch Star Trek. I'm going to watch Star Wars. I like spaceships. And then just talking about the concepts of space travel in either show and going, wouldn't it be cool if you could make a Enterprise D on a Death Star? So I was like, what are you talking about? What is going on in your brain? Like it seems to be like this crazy fanboy fanfic channel, and that's not worth anyone's time. So you know how Maggie Mae Fish makes shit up, and like, no one could possibly have her ideas, and we're like, whoa, that's just bonkers. This is like, well, you take the phasers from this, you put it onto a lightsaber, and it does this. It's like, excuse me, why are we thinking along these ridiculous lines of two completely different IPs and genres? So I just don't know what to expect. So this is my brain is going, I think this is what's going to happen. And when you talk about proud warrior races, we can go as far back as Sumerians, the tribes of ancient Greece.
Sparta.
Yeah, we can go to Egypt. We can go to modern times. You want to talk about Americans being warrior-like, I guess.
Doesn't sort of every continent have that at some point in history?
We can go to Rhodesia. We can go a lot of places.
Every culture has a military of some kind. And if you don't get that, then just play a game of Civilization 1 and choose any civ. And you realize very quickly, even if you're a peaceful dude, you're going to need a military. You're going to need some phalanx. You're going to need some tanks eventually. So it's kind of how societies progress.
Maybe his thought is that, well, the warrior race eventually has no one to fight, and then it's just infighting, and it breaks apart. Blah, 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 blah.
Or it could be like, we like bronze spears. We are so good with the bronze spear. We are invincible. It doesn't matter what happens to progress or technology. We're going to keep having the phalanx or whatever.
Yeah, but even if that happens, then it just turns into sport, because a proud warrior race isn't fighting wars all the time, every day. Most of the time, you're just training. You're honing your skills.
Well, the idea of pride, if we're talking about a timocratic government like a Spartan government or any kind of government or body of the people that are focused on defense or conquer, they are using the virtue of courage. So they're saying, okay, I'm going to put my life on the line for my people, but they're not going to be retards about it. They're not going to start charging a tank with a bronze spear. So they're going to adapt. They're going to say,
unless you're Japanese.
Well, okay, I don't know if you want to use that comparison of kamikaze bombers versus a bunch of aircraft carriers, but this is stupid to even contemplate. To say, oh yeah, we're so antiquated, we're never going to use gunpowder, we're never going to use airplanes, we're never going to use submarines, we're never going to use laser-guided missiles or whatever. So that's a dumb argument. It's not worth listening to, and it's ultimately childish. So.
Yeah, the thing is, it always has hand-to-hand combat at its core. Anyone who doesn't hone that is gonna be out of shape and won't know how to do what.
All right. Okay. Well, I don't know what to expect.
Need that hand-eye coordination.
Let's see what's going to happen. Let me read some stuff from the donations and the super chats. Here's Vladimir Dragunov. Thank you, sir. For religious reasons, I didn't watch the previous stream. Good for you. That's
I already forgot what it was about.
Oh, you don't want to remember. That's fine. Giga Chad, thank you for the $1. Warrior races actually do tend to stick around quite a bit because they can fend off invaders, unless they mean nomadic peoples like the Indians or the Cossacks. Then maybe. I don't know. This seems...
They had the warring tribes as well.
Yeah, I mean, you could say the Huns or Gypsies, if you want to talk about them not being violent eventually. The Vikings, like there's all kinds of societies throughout history.
I mean, the one who... The proud race that is doomed to extinction is the pacifist. The proud pacifist will just be waltzed over.
Yeah.
It reminds
And
me
a few
of
times in history.
It reminds me of a comment. I don't remember who it was that said it, but it was essentially summarizing why women are usually kept in such tight leashes throughout history. And it comes back to how the Indo-Europeans, every tribe that tried to do a 50-50 split in terms of power, was destroyed by another tribe where it was essentially 90-10% split instead of importance when it came to like official power.
And you complain about my tangents.
That wasn't that bad. Anyway, let's get going. This is 29 minutes. I don't know what to expect. I hope it's a history lesson. That would be very nice, but I don't know about these guys. Their videos look very strange. So let's get started. What is this?
Pretentious intro. It does look good though.
For 10 seconds?
Longer.
Still going.
15 seconds. 16. Jesus.
Imagine for the moment that the
There we go.
Templin Institute has completed its mission,
What
and we now
mission?
have an exhaustive catalog of every nation, faction, and organization from across every alternate world.
What?
And we're no longer investigating.
Are you telling me you read a whole bunch of books and watched a whole bunch of shows? What are you talking
I think
about?
his stick is that he's role playing as the institute. It's not just the actual creator of the video, but he's the science fiction institute of the name Templin, and that is in this magical meta dimension.
I watched a
He's
bunch of
role-playing.
shows, therefore I am the smart guy who knows about the shows. It's like, okay.
I think he's running with the joke of, let's say, theoretically, of course, that we did everything, that everything is done for.
Yeah, but this is no different than like the fanboy who's read like Marvel comics and who would win in a fight against Superman versus.
Let's see where he takes it. Then we can cast our stones.
All right.
Yeah, don't forget, this is about fictional fiction,
Sure.
not real fiction.
them, but stories. But we can at least
We're no longer investigating. We're putting them in categories. What?
He's done with investigation. He knows everything.
I
now.
know everything. Let me put them into
So
boxes.
he's
now.
So he's sorting now. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, let him go on.
begin to classify. We have the Federation builders who seek to unite their disparate elements to achieve a common good.
Star Trek.
The hegemonic imperialists who work tirelessly to impose their own brand of order upon its citizenry, and then the plucky rebellion fighting to overthrow them.
What is that?
Then there's the loose coalition of renegades and independents, or the unknowable hive mind whose legions act in singular
That's
purpose.
a moon.
Tyranids? No, that's the Tyranids.
That's a moon. There's two moons.
No, it's a
There's stuff
Tyranids.
around the moon.
The stuff
The
around
black... okay, Smut. The black cloud you're staring at with your own blue Aryan eyes is the Tyranids swarming the moon.
I think it's more reddish brown.
Okay.
It's like space shit.
Whatever.
It's like space diarrhea.
Hive mind. I don't care. Whatever.
Slave
Mad
explorers,
Max? What?
xenophobic
What the hell?
isolationists,
Hold up.
Xenophobic isolation.
erudite explorers, xenophobic isolationists,
Oh, okay. Just throw that onto the elves, I guess. I mean, everyone is fucking xenophobic in Warhammer Fantasy. That's not unique to them.
And everyone has reason to.
Even
That's
the orcs,
that's the wonderful thing about it.
even the orcs don't like when people march into their territory.
Okay, this is gone off the rails already. This is nuts.
It's why we have doors.
Okay.
However you might choose to label these categories, it's clear that different civilizations can share similar attributes and might be grouped together.
Okay.
So if we imagine that all these categories are all filled out, there might come the temptation to compare them against one another. It's
Sure.
difficult to gauge what kind of civilizations are the most successful or have the greatest potential. All
For
things
what?
being equal, will Federation builders always triumph over hegemonic imperialists?
How?
Will evangelizing zealots reliably conquer harmonious collectivists? Who can say? There are far too many variables to make any kind of firm proclamation. But I think we can go out on a limb and make a very strong argument that one category, one kind of civilization, is ultimately and perhaps tragically doomed to fail. What we're gonna call the proud warrior race.
Why?
Chances are, based on the name alone, you can think of at least one nation or faction that fits this category. But before going any further, it's still important to define exactly what we mean by this term. There's no single definition, of course,
The what?
but the Templin Institute's classification of a proud...
There's no single definition. By the way, here's a definition. Like what? Okay.
It's
sure.
kind of tautological.
It's just, it doesn't exist, but we're gonna make it exist. Like, all right, sure.
Like a tautology is when you use the word to explain the word, which in this case is what the headline would be. So usually when you define something, you shouldn't do it tautologically, because explaining how a river works would be bad if you use the word river in the definition of the word river.
Yeah.
That doesn't work. It's circular.
The pride-fighting genetic people. Like, okay.
Yeah, but when you have a headline for like a category, like proud warrior race, then that is descriptive of the thing. That the description is already in the title. We are not calling it Tribalism, because then nobody would know what that is. Then you would need an extra definition, and that extra definition would be proud warrior race.
Yeah. Okay.
So we just say proud warrior race.
There we go.
proud warrior race would be based on these central tenets or elements. Immense value placed on the mastery of combat techniques. The life of an individual warrior is dedicated almost solely to their craft.
So any military, every military. Fair enough. Okay.
Good military.
Code of honor, outlining the norms, rules, and responsibilities of the individual, usually as related to warfare.
That's totally normal in warfare. That's how war is fought. You don't have certain techniques, like you don't have chemicals, you don't have all kinds of nasty ways of killing people instantly.
You tend not to use nuclear warfare in most settings.
Yeah, that's pretty standard. I mean, it's the same way when we had muskets. We all lined up like gentlemen, and we all kill each other in volleys, and we all reloaded after that with our second battalion, and they fired and came up. Yeah, we have certain practices so that even with guns, with muskets, we had a certain modicum of respect. It wasn't just
It's
like
same for
guerrilla warfare tactics or whatever.
The code of honor in such societies is usually intertwined with their social lives.
Yep.
Like in North Germanic society, which people call Viking society for, well, popular pop culture reasons. One of the highest rules of society, that if you break it, you are just beneath. Everybody sees you beneath the ground at that point, is when you betray hospitality. Hospitality was the highest good among these people, and so you give hospitality, and when you receive hospitality, you do not exploit it.
Same with
Anyone who does or who shits on it is basically not considered worth keeping alive.
I'm trying to remember which societies did this, but I think duels were a part of various societies where disputes could not be resolved, and you had to go to violence. It was always a last resort. And it's the same in military. You have negotiation, you have various bartering, you have various waiting, and then if you still can't resolve one side's issue, then military involvement is the final action. So yeah, no, this is fine. This is normal.
A structure in which rival familial clans or some kind of tribal structure competes with or supersedes any national identity.
Okay, so we've already reduced everything to tribes.
In which rival familial clans or some kind of tribal structure competes with the supersedes any national identity. National identity is relatively new in history.
Yeah, and it's also a questionable term. Because those smaller parts are technically their own nations. They just all share the same culture.
Yeah, it's the difference between government and military. So does that imply that
No, not even. Look at feudal states. Whether you look at the Holy Roman Empire or whether you look at feudal Japan.
Yeah, but even they had...
It's all the same culture, but they are basically all their own political entities.
Okay, but I mean, this is when we disconnect the military from the government, we always talk about Nazi Germany saying, well, here's the political body, and here's the military, the various military bodies, and they're not all Nazis, they're not all German Air Force, or they're not all German military. I think they're their own things.
Yeah, you will also still have. Japan is a wonderful example of this. You will still have your warrior culture, your proud warrior culture. Once you have your emperor that has everyone united. You're just not necessarily feeding it all from your state treasury because now all enemies are gone.
Yeah, but it's kind of weird that he's stating it this way because we also have in the UK, we've got I guess you can call hegemonic royalty, even though they're just figureheads. They don't actually have much power unless the stages of government break down and they resolve to the king or queen. But that's, after the House of Lords says we're totally we can't do anything, we've prorogued parliament, or we have a stalemate, and you go straight to the king or queen. But that's extremely rare.
I think what he's trying to get at is the kind of culture such as you see in Africa, where you might have a overarching country, but that country is made up of 4 or 5 or 7 different tribes that refer to themselves as that tribe, and that's the identity. I think that's what he's going for.
It sounds like a primitive way of looking at civilization, but that's fine. If that's what he's going with, then fine, let's go with that. That's fine.
Yeah, but that doesn't really work because those nations are usually forced upon those tribes. They're not mutual.
Yes. The problem is that he says that they are some kind of tribal structure which competes with or supersedes a national identity.
All right, that's fine. Let's keep going. Here's Turmoil. Thank you, sir, for the 2. Nationalism's existence should be blamed on the French. We can't blame the French with everything, guys. It's too much.
No, we should blame the Germans.
The law.
I am more in favor of blaming the French. The French aren't even on Discord.
All right, whatever. Let's keep going.
A disproportionate devotion or reverence towards war at the societal level that comes at the expense of economic, industrial, scientific, cultural, or another expression.
What does that mean?
Okay, so any society that picks war over any other form of power is just under this tenets of the proud warrior race. So every society that puts more money into their military than their social services are a proud warrior race.
No, it's not even that, because he's saying at the expense of economic. How can you have a military complex that has no money? Doesn't make any sense.
How did the Klingons get into space anyway with that attitude?
Oh yeah, we can go all kinds of arguments. The thing with the warrior races that put honor above all else, or fighting prowess, or skill with fighting or conquering, you have to have the basics of civilization. Yeah. You have to have economic forces, industrial forces to get into space. Obviously, this involves science. This involves cultural. This involves all these other soft skills that people have, or the civilization has developed, in order to get to the stars and say, aha, we are Klingons, we like to fight because we got spaceships and weapons now.
Yeah, the thing about this whole concept is that in fantasy and science fiction, when we encounter a proud warrior race, we usually see that side of it, the proud warriors. We don't immediately see the whole backbone of that society, because that is also there. And for all intents and purposes, 40K has all of that. The Space Marines are the embodiment of a proud warrior race. And behind that, in order to sustain them, so that they can even do what they do and be the way they are, you have billions upon billions of people, or rather trillions, in the galaxy that work so that are not Space Marines, that work so that the Space Marines can be Space Marines.
How can you be a proud warrior race referencing the Space Marines when the Space Marines kill their own if they take pride in their work?
Yeah, this seems a little contradictory. I don't know. I need an example because he's just making these weird criteria, and I'm just like, that's not possible.
Yeah, I want to hear his examples, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I can't wait.
Okay, let's go.
Now every civilization
Narn?
might be named a proud warrior race. There will always be exceptions. Nor does every warrior race
Explained none. I think the
Also-
None are a perfect example of this concept.
Yeah, but their homes or their planet is almost decimated, so they have very few resources. They do have ships still, some of them, and they do.
Yeah, but
have-
it's not the fault of them being a proud warrior race. That is because the Centauri were vastly outnumbering them and outtacking them.
right. But they're still alive. They're still trying to get revenge. They're still trying to survive, and
They're not gone.
Yeah, we see what the remnants of their civilization, and the food they eat, their rituals. They have that crazy what was Jakara? Was he a member of the Kali or something like that?
Yeah, that was the governmental body. Yeah, but the Nan then become the guardians of the other races, like solving border disputes and so on.
That was a bad example, I think, of what he was trying to show. Anyway.
Yeah, because the Nan retain all of their stuff, even though their homeworld is just the red dust bowl.
Yeah.
every world have these elements in equal amounts, but it's enough.
So there are exceptions.
So what is it then about
Probably
civilizations
every
that
example.
embody these qualities that make them doomed to fail?
Why?
Well, I think it comes
Dunn
down
didn't
to a
fail.
relatively simple answer.
Yeah.
These four central tenets of the proud warrior race become increasingly inefficient and counterproductive as technology and society advances. And that's-
Wait,
that's
hold up,
every-
hold up. He just showed the Gauls versus the Romans. Both are proud warrior races under these criteria.
Yeah, but
Yeah, also, who beat the Romans? Some triagging hippies in northern Germany.
Yeah, but he said that everything falls down to technology. It's like, you're right. Everything does. As technology advances, that is the primary influencer of culture. So-
That's why the British won the first fight against the Zulu, right?
Well, then what's the argument then? If this is all irrelevant, then who the hell gives a shit if it's a proud warrior race or a not proud warrior race?
Yeah,
so-
because then it's just a the technological imbalance between both parties is the deciding factor. Okay, but that has nothing to do with one being a proud warrior race and the other not.
Again, the Romans were a proud warrior race. They were some of the most technologically advanced civilizations we've ever seen from the times.
Yeah, and with the Narn example, they were already weakened 1,000 years earlier when the Shadows used their planet as a base station, and they were still they hadn't touched the stars yet, but the Shadows destroyed or took away all of their telepaths, so that there are basically no telepath genes left in their species.
Yeah, and
That gives them a disadvantage in the long run.
And then the
That is not the
Centauri-
fault of being a proud warrior race.
and the Centauri did even more damage to them. And it's like, okay,
Mhm.
they're remnants of an old civilization.
I think what the argument he's trying to make is that when the technological advancement happens within the proud warrior race,
and
that's what he's talking
and they don't
about.
adapt to it. Like, this is stupid. Like, if
That doesn't take, but the technological advancement doesn't take away your being your proud warrior race and stuff.
Yeah, the warriors would be like, oh wow, a new weapon, let's use it. Not oh, it's a steel spear. I like my bronze spear better. Like, when does that happen? That's just dumb people. That's not nothing to do with pride. They're just a stupid idiot.
Yeah,
who doesn't know how to fight.
And it was it's a relatively common sci-fi story in Star Trek with the Hirogen that take their cultural backbone is being bounty hunters, finding the big game. They're basically predators who hunt the alien.
Yeah, and that's their entire culture is we want to get a big trophy.
Yeah, and that brings problems with it. And they seek to solve that with the holodeck technology by building giant space stations with holodeck stuff and very sophisticated AI that becomes sentient and wants to flee the holodeck.
All right.
I was thinking of an example from Stargate, Smud, the Jaffa race. That I guess that could be considered like a proud warrior race because they're all warriors. There's really no, I mean, at least not until season 9 there was any political figures in that warrior race. The Jaffa.
They were a slave group.
Yeah, they were enslaved by people who had better technology.
Right, and they were
could be conceived as magic,
and they were trying to escape that, and that's why.
Yeah, but
there was an example.
They went all warriors,
right? And there was an example where we, as the humans, gave them our guns. Like, hey, here's our guns. This is like, it's like a, what do you call it? Like hey, a show of trust or something like that. And they were quick to point out, like, well, these things use ammunition, which you guys have, so we're relying on you for the ammo. Whereas their guns, they didn't need ammo. They were infinite.
That only looks as it does for most of the show. By the end, we learn that these things use energy cells and they can be depleted. They just work for a very, very, very long time.
Right. And yeah, pretty much all the alien races use energy weapons. Pretty much all of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is, you can see already how all the permutations in science fiction and fantasy are very nuanced, especially when you're talking about gigantic worlds that span galaxies in the 40K world or Stargate, where there's all these interstellar aliens. So I don't know what the point of this video is because everything is going to be lost to nuance. Again, I feel like this is a kid who's been watching and reading a bunch of shows and going, I know all kinds of cool aliens. And you're like, okay.
No, that's a child that visited TV tropes.
I think he's just projecting his limited view on things.
Yeah. All right. Anyway.
Again, he's showing one of the most successful factions in Game of Thrones as an example of a proud warrior race that is bound to fail. As they successful, not because they win, because these guys are infamous for losing, but because they can't get rid of them, unlike most other civilizations or houses in Game of Thrones, which can just disappear at a moment's notice.
Okay, let's try and keep going here.
The proud warrior race can easily be successful during what we might call the Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age, or maybe even a later era. It might even be uniquely suited to thrive in these ages. But eventually, technological progress will reach a tipping point.
Wait. Those are technological ages.
Yes.
What is he talking? Like, does the invention of the siege tower change things? Not much, but it does. And they adapted. The Iron Age.
The Turks were a proud warrior race that used cannons on the Western world. They lost.
The catapult was invented. Oh my god, we can't adapt. Oh wait, we did.
The trebuchet was invented. Now none shall stand before the Western. Oh, They just adapted it too. God damn it.
They used fire arrows and burnt them down. Yeah, like, ooh.
They're like, ooh, scary wooden structure.
Let's invent undermining the enemy wall and city and just dig into it. Oh, they're counter digging. Damn it.
Yeah, how do we siege a castle with a shovel? It's like, okay.
How do we stop them from doing this? Throw something on top of
Yeah,
them.
throw some dirt on them or something.
Throw a bomb. That's actually where bombs, like throwable bombs for first use was during sieges.
Just dig back and flood it. Flood the tunnel.
He is missing his own argument because maybe he's thinking like technology like way in the future. Like, I don't know.
I think he just thinks that this whole the idea of man-to-man combat just disappears because guns.
Yeah, look at before guns, all these stages of siege weaponry and armor and pikes and why they were going up and down in terms of availability, why they trained soldiers with spears and shields as opposed to swords and plate mail.
For guns, people had bows and crossbows.
Which
you go further back, they had slings.
Yeah.
And bloody hell, have you seen what the children of indigenous tribes do with slings?
Oh yeah, it's cool.
Holy shit!
Yeah, no. So these bows and crossbows penetrated plate mail, so they stopped doing that.
They actually couldn't do that for most of human history. Even when we got bendy metal, what was actually happening was that they usually knocked them off their seats. At which point, you get stuck in the mud and get stabbed to death. But yeah, go on.
I was thinking of they made the crossbows illegal during Henry II or whatever era that was, and he used them anyway because he really wanted a castle to siege. So they have all these weapons that were already illegal, like the same idea with chemical warfare.
I thought they were illegal for the civilian populace because they were too easy to use against others. Like it's just because just point and shoot.
It was basically a 150 meter gun that you could just point and shoot and assassinate people. So they said, okay, we can't use that. It's too much. And they made all those rules in the UK about how if you're a Scotsman, you could be killed with a bow, but not a crossbow or something. It's legal to.
Oh, we had the same. It's and it's why the Kriegsmesser was invented.
Yeah, there's all these rules.
Because you can't have a sword. Well, it's just a big knife. Look! It's made like a knife. It only has one side, and the handle has these screws in them. It's not a sword handle. Yeah. It's a knife handle, so it's a knife.
Oh, Jacob brings up
big knife.
Jacob brings up a great point. I thought the main problem of warrior factions, nations, races, whatever, have is succession crises. The Mongol Empire comes to mind.
Maybe if you're referring to tribes, but when you get to hegemonic states or feudalism, where you have the princes and princesses and kings and lords of various lands, they all sort of get into agreements. And it doesn't really matter who you promise your loyalty to. It's like, oh, you're the new lord? Okay, well, I'm the king. Are you going to join me or not? And it's like, okay, yeah, you're the top dog. I may as well. Even though
Isn't he showing footage of Braveheart right now?
Oh dear, I don't know.
I don't know, is there a truck in the background?
Yeah, technological.
I think I saw the Scottish flag. I think it might be Braveheart.
You can see it right now.
Yeah. Anyway, his argument is technology destroys warriors. You're like, no, they make warriors.
Yeah, but whether you have your proud warrior race culture thing going is independent of your form of government.
Anyway, let's keep going.
Tenets become obsolete, and what before might have been a major advantage now becomes a glaring weakness. So let's look at these one by one.
Define warrior.
Immense value placed on the mastery of combat techniques. The life of a warrior is dedicated almost solely to their craft. In any era where the most powerful weapons are swords and bows and everything in between, this makes a lot of sense. These weapons, and others like them, require a great deal of skill to wield efficiently.
So do guns.
Spent decades.
What fucking movie is he showing where the archer is not looking where he's firing?
Yeah, you know
that was the Vikings TV series, which is bonkers.
Remember how hard it is to
horrible
aim and target with a trebuchet? You gotta know calculus.
Oh, the best part was having the stories of medieval students having to be dragged down to do calculus and trebuchets.
You gotta know all these angles. It's trig. Do you think that there's just a bunch of morons go, let's throw rocks at them with our
Big rock.
No, they gotta figure out the angle and what the wind is like and how heavy the load is and all these things. It's not just, we're a bunch of morons with spears. Oh my God. What was there was that Roman spear that acted as a javelin. I can't remember the name of it. But
Javelin?
It would start with a P, I think. I can't recall.
Pilum?
Pilum, I think it was a pilum, yeah. And it was like the same idea with their sword.
Yes, pilum.
Their spear was a javelin, and their sword was also like a knife. Their gladius. Like, it was so versatile. That's why the Romans were so successful in a variety of engagements, because they had the right equipment for every scenario almost. And they didn't have to change too much until, to fight other non-Bronze Age warriors. So this is a dumb argument. This is a really silly thing that everyone's like, duh, we're just going to use sticks.
Spent decades practicing through even a far larger army of untrained conscripts. But sooner or later, somebody is going to invent a new kind of weapon, one that can be deadly even in the hands of a novice.
So
you train with that.
Yeah.
He's one fucking guy. If they wanted him dead, they would just swarm to him. He can't reload fast enough to kill all of them. What's your fucking point?
Well, I guess it's playing devil's advocate here. They don't know what that weapon is.
No, but they know they can throw they can throw anything at him and knock him the fuck out.
Right. No. I get that. I'm on your side with this. I'm just playing devil's advocate a little bit.
Yeah.
He's just bringing up this very silly point that new technology makes everything obsolete when that is not the case.
Yeah, not in this case.
Have you not heard of gun fu?
What's hilarious is that if you pointed that shotgun at the guy holding the sword, that plate would probably have saved the guy's life. Because our modern weaponry is not built to penetrate plate.
Can we have the Japanese cowboy
plus that buckshot hits somebody behind him too, I guarantee you.
Absolutely.
Can somebody please put in the the stream meme section a Japanese cowboy who is samurai sword drawing a shotgun
and a laser guided missile on his helmet.
Oh, I know the meme you're talking about, Whisp.
It's beautiful.
All right. Anyway.
Yeah.
Here's Captain Kohai. Hey, how's it going? They still use swords and pikes and armor when guns are being used in war. Yes, exactly. When
that is what we call pike and shot.
They have the Civil War. They had the lieutenants. They had the 6-piece revolvers. Some of them had muskets, but they still had swords and spears.
Yeah. Just on that note, I want to mention that the Japanese love cowboys because to them the cowboy movies are very, very similar to their samurai movies and samurai culture. That's the part, at least the part that's depicted of that culture.
There's a good
the lone gunman who goes out and brings justice.
I think there's a good symbiosis between Japanese film and cowboy film. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
See this? This is my boomstick!
In most cases, you would expect this to be some kind of firearm, and its invention starts the first ticking clock for the warrior race. It might take a while for this weapon to be refined.
What are you talking about?
No, the warrior race is going to get stronger!
No, the warrior race then uses this weapon.
That is exactly what the Native Americans did when was it the Spanish that moved over to it, or the Portuguese? Help me here.
This is like arguing a boxer who's never encountered a right hook before goes, what the hell was that? What the hell was that? What? And they never bother to train or learn about it or nothing. Just, I don't know.
Proud warrior race, your day is over. I learned to write.
Yeah, it's like this.
I can just imagine a boxer going, "Stop that!
Yeah, this is retarded.
Stop swinging at me!"
Oh, there's this one fraud boxer who claims that he's been unbeaten and unbeatable, and every time he's on camera, he just chickens out. It's beautiful. Does exactly that.
This is as if we're being taught by like we're 4 years old and we have no idea what fighting is.
Yeah, it is like a child who thinks that but newer technology destroys everything. Oh, I have the bigger thing now. Therefore, everyone else loses. Haha. And all of us brought up previous historical arguments where that didn't work.
Yeah, this is dumb.
It's why we won in Independence Day.
Okay.
Against the big aliens and their super lasers and their
Shut
planet
up.
destruction super lasers.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. We had Jeff Goldblum, baby.
Because humans are a proud warrior race, as seen in Independence Day 2, where the super AI chooses humanity to train us with its super technology to fight back the swarm stupid aliens.
With an AI virus thing that causes it to not work anymore, so we could ram nuclear missiles up its gullet. Okay, that's great.
We had Will Smith before he became lame.
Okay, that's 5 minutes
That's his fault
in.
for marrying a psychopath.
We are hurting our brain on every sentence.
This weapon to be refined and be made available in large enough numbers, but once it reaches a tipping point and becomes the new standard, the nature of warfare changes.
Then everyone adapted. What's your argument?
Uh-huh.
What
Think of another wonderful example in Stargate SG-1. I mean, he loves his sci-fi so much. He probably didn't pay attention when the Asgardians got Jack O'Neill up on their ship, when they were fighting the replicators.
Oh, I know what you're gonna say. Go ahead, Wisp.
Yeah, and they were at a loss at what to do because, well, they kept developing their super technology further and further, but it never was enough to beat the replicators. And anytime they lost the ship to the replicators, of course, integrated their technology and got stronger. So
Yeah, because the Asgard never invented guns.
Well, I
They
think they're just so far beyond that they never considered
Right.
that anymore.
Well, I
They
think
probably did that 2 million years ago.
well, maybe, but yeah, I think Thor at one point said that we never imagined like combining like all these elements to create gunpowder or guns.
Yeah, to propel Mars against the thing and then it
Right.
explodes.
They're using energy weapons. We're still using bullets.
Yeah, but basically, what a gun is basically a what's the word for Zwille in English? The little toy that a child uses with the rubber band.
The
little
slingshot?
A slingshot. That's guns are basically just high level slingshots.
Pretty much, yeah.
Because they aim at thing, propel and propel bullet, but that's not what O'Neill did. That's just what gave the initial advantage of the humans, which made the Asgardians consider asking the humans. What Jack O'Neill then suggested was that, okay, you have the most super developed ship right now, and it's being chased by 3 of your other ships that were captured by the replicators. Yeah? Okay. Yeah, don't engage them. Flee. Okay, they're all behind you now. Okay. Now...
Well, not to nitpick Wisp, that was actually Carter, Sam Carter that said that.
Carter? I thought it was...
Yeah, it was Carter. It was Carter.
Okay. Yes, okay.
Yeah. But go ahead. You're on a roll. Go ahead.
Yeah. And then the suggestion was, okay, now blow up your ship. And Asgard was, what? What? But it's our highest developed ship. Like, no, blow it up. Okay, boom.
Yep. And then the debris from it hit the 3 ships behind it
and destroyed them
while it was in hyperspace too.
Yeah, replicators beaten.
Yeah,
and actually, were like, hey, we are super. We have an IQ of 5,000 each, and we didn't consider that. Thank you, little Earth monkey.
And yeah, actually, speaking of the replicators, they actually overcame they adapted to the guns eventually when they created the human form replicators.
Mhm.
The guns were pretty much useless against them at that point.
Okay, now we're getting the interesting comments. So Mario Badia says, "What you guys are not getting is that it's a major blow if you're highly trained. The veteran warriors with years of experience gets gunned down by a guy with a few months of training." Mario, that is correct. Problem is, if somebody invents a new thing, that invention is going to eventually spread unless it is kept highly secret. And we have like 2 examples of weapons that had that fate, such as Greek Fire, which we never really got widespread, but it was also only used like 4 times in total. That's the only one that comes off the top of my head.
Yeah, another thing that you can bring up is you don't need hardware, higher level technology. Your invention can be purely of your mind. And what I mean with that is you look at the history of the provinces of Iga and Koga in Japan during the Warring States period, and the way they hold out as long as they did, and that's where all the ninja mythology comes from that we have today, that has very little to do with actual history, is that the samurai tended to have a very strict code of honor, of what to do with their swords, etc. And the warriors of Iga and Koga thought, yeah, we're no samurai, but let's pretend we are. Let's pretend we abide by their code. Oh, the samurai always hold their sword with their right hand. Well, let's hold it with the left and make them think that we're idiots. So let's train on both hands, train right and left hand. And that will confuse the samurai because he will think you are an idiot who doesn't know how to hold a sword. Second, he will not be used to fighting someone who's fighting left-handed because all the movements are slightly different.
Right.
And other things like, hey, that guy threw his sword. A samurai doesn't throw his sword. That's that's basically like a different technology.
Mario
have a sword sticking in your head.
They are no longer a proud warrior race if they had to resort to anything that is not close combat related, because that is not honorable. Who are you talking about? What?
Have you ever seen a gun duel?
No, he's showing all these references to like medieval stuff. And a bunch of cultures like in the medieval world that were constantly doing an arms race, trying to get the best sword, the best shield, the best artillery weapons, the best siege weapons, the best tactics, and then saying, oh, these guys are not proud warrior races if they are not only melee related. What society decides that, no, they are going to do artillery only, essentially, or melee only?
Yeah, Lala, you're only a proud warrior race if you use a buttlet that is deliberately a bad combat weapon so that you have it harder to fight your enemy, because that's the only way you can be a proud warrior.
All right.
By giving yourself a handicap.
Let's keep going. Here's Legacy. Thank you, sir. To recall the famous song, "Monkey hate technology, robot hate the monkey. They will fight eternally." It's called adaptability, folks. Okay. Yeah, no, this whole argument that tech changes things is like, yeah, it's true. It changes everything. It doesn't matter if it's warfare or culture. It's still going to change how we do things. So
warrior race is just going to adapt a new big thing.
I'm still stuck on that example he used from the Evil Dead. It's like that's unfair because he traveled back in time. You know, that's not like another civilization with advanced weapons. That was a guy who traveled back in time. That's a bad example.
Yep.
I thought it was a parallel world.
Anyway,
No, I think it's Anyway,
let us keep going and see where this goes, because it is such a bad level of argument that we're just like nodding our heads off. Like, oh my god!
It's if you wrote your story like this, it would be bad writing.
Important, but devoting your life to mastering the art of personal combat starts leading to diminishing return.
No, it doesn't. That's called a military.
What?
That's called having a working military, you weirdo.
It also builds character.
There are entire
Also, this-
families that are military families that they have sons and daughters in the military.
This argument goes for the Okay, take any military, diminishing returns are a thing. I remember there was one story of a U.S. Deployed through the World War II that won all their battles. Like literally all their deployments were victories. But by the time that they reached the end of their deployment, they were so fucking battered and tired that they were essentially combat ineffective. Despite having the numbers needed, because mentally they had just taken a toll. They'd taken too much of a toll. And ended up executing German prisoners. Like that happens whether you have a katana or an M16 or an M1 Garand. It doesn't fucking matter. You're gonna get diminishing returns either way.
I feel for the people who watch this and think this is good content to listen to and believe.
Or logical.
I don't, because I think information goes through one end and flies out the other.
He's making this bizarre assumption that
Forget children watch this.
you train with a katana and then you do it all your life and you don't bother to learn like the spear or the shield or the bow or whatever other weapon is out there.
Which is a hilarious concept because the samurai were bound to the bow.
This is really sad. Yeah, I don't know what he's on about. These examples do not work.
A master warrior who has devoted their entire life to the study of combat is suddenly just as vulnerable to being killed by a bullet as any novice conscript. Except the death of that master warrior...
The same goes for an arrow or a
Also,
bolt.
This very same scene, they didn't have supply lines for their guns as much as the invaders did. This was a question of, honorable. No, these guys fought with guns too. They just didn't have as many as the enemy. That was the problem. They were outnumbered 10-1 and didn't have as many guns as the enemy.
And how does the death of a master warrior now hit harder if he's up against bullets? Just get guns. Figure it out. You don't need master warriors anymore. You need guys that are really good at sharpshooting.
Also, in that
Which is a master warrior.
Well, I guess.
In that same movie,
It's a very specialized weapon.
before this scene, they ambushed the guy successfully and fucking destroyed him in melee. Using samurai ambush tactics.
Yep.
Oh, God. All right.
now hits far harder because it represents the loss of decades of investment in time, money, and experience.
No!
While that
A U.S. soldier costs more than any samurai could ever hope to.
This is
Just
like
in pure gear alone.
this is like arguing the mortar fire or the artillery fire just wasted like 20 years of training this guy with a stick, and you're like, okay, don't you have mortar? Don't you have artillery? Maybe it has nothing to do with the warrior and has more to do with your general doing bad tactics. This is, I mean, this, I don't get it. Like, I don't get his argument here.
It is the noble savage trope of the race that refuses to adopt guns,
That
which
doesn't,
was adopted by people like James Cameron.
that doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't, because it doesn't face reality. Reality is everyone adopts the technology one way or the other. Even the people that we claim to be noble savages that never touched a gun due to honor, they were more than happy to pick up a gun. Fuck, the Zulu picked up guns.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
contrast was comparatively cheap to arm and train. His loss is no big deal. And it's only
That gun is expensive! His entire kid is from the other side of the world! That shit is crazy! A fucking child that's like 15, 16 with a katana? Are you gonna say he's more expensive? I
Probably
mean,
needs less metal.
All right.
sure, go ahead. You can claim that it's more expensive due to the years. But I'm sure if you tallied up those numbers, you would not want to see a bunch of conscripts with a bunch of expensive rifles lose those same rifles and their kids in the middle of foggy forest where you can't recover them.
I'm just curious where we're going with this. We keep talking about tech. Like we're going to get into like, oh, well, what if we have AI now that's super responsive and knows the best vector for targeting and all this other crap. You're like, okay, what's your point?
And it just all goes to strategy.
It's like, yeah.
Then that's the proud warrior thing that's left. That's strategy.
Imagine having a bunch of melee AI robots that just keep using swords. And all the humans are like trying to stop the AI with like missiles and lasers and shit. we can't win. Our weapons aren't working.
Okay, Mario Badia says that proud warrior race mentality caused the Krogan to nuke themselves into near extinction. Plus, it made them easier to manipulate to be living weapons, aka their role in the Arachnid War. Mario, didn't you earlier say that they can't be a proud warrior race if they use guns? Are the Krogans not famous for their ability to use guns?
Their entire culture is basically bounty hunters at that point. The
whole problem with the Krogans is that they got their technological jump too quickly. That's the moral of the Krogan story. Don't give the indigenous tree huggers high-tech weapons or high tech in general, because they will just do stupid shit with it and annihilate themselves.
Yeah,
that's what the Krogan story
they're
is.
More than happy to use nuclear weapons. They have no problems with adapting.
Yeah.
The problem is they're not smart enough to use them.
Yeah, which is why we have similar stories with humanity in general not being given super high nanotech, multi-dimensional manipulation technology by the super aliens, because we are not ready for it.
Anyway,
same idea.
Let's keep going.
It's going to get worse and worse for the proud warrior race. As civilization continues to advance, warfare becomes more and more mechanized.
You're telling me those are not proud warriors here
of the
on screen?
Individual soldier
Because I have
in the course
guns?
of any major conflict, that human element, if you pardon the expression, starts to get stripped away.
What do you mean?
Artillery, tanks, aircraft.
Wait. Just because you have artillery and armored vehicles, the human element gets stripped away? What?
You think jet pilots are not proud warriors?
Because you're in a tank design like the Panther 2? Like, that's an amazing tank. Do you think people aren't proud to pilot that?
You know those tank guys were expected to get out of their tanks, light a Molotov, and throw it on top of an enemy tank during the Second Chechen War, right? Those guys don't fuck around. They're very hand-to-hand if need be.
This is like saying anyone who's an APC driver or, I don't know.
Anyone that drives a vehicle is a fucking coward.
This is some sort of non-warrior. Like, oh, I don't want to fight, guys. This is so weird.
You know, this guy does not understand what being a warrior even means. I think he said it did he even say that it's a warrior honing one weapon skill in his life? Something like that?
That was his point with the samurai, where that they spent all that time just honing the blade and then got cut down by bullets.
Yeah, that's bullshit. The main weapon samurai used was their bow.
And they
were
that
famous
point.
archers.
Yeah.
And every warrior, every master, real master warrior knows several weapons to wield, not just one. And that's the example you just brought with the tank crew. Yeah, you can operate your tank. Awesome. What if your tank doesn't work anymore? Oh, we just sit there and wait for the Doge dog to come and rescue us.
Yeah, they train even the military or the medical staff with rifles and pistols and knives and survival training. So every modern military does that. So I don't know. Like, the issue becomes, okay, how superior is the opponent's technology? What do they have? Like, they have stealth? Do they have laser guided this or that? Do they have bombardment support? Like, there's all kinds of other things. Like, that was kind of like the Gulf War joke, where it's like, oh, we're gonna stop the Saudi Arabia's whatever tank battalion, and they did. With like 50 Abrams, and they had like I think the Saudis had like 7 or 8. 30-year-old tanks, and it was over in about 20 seconds. And it's like, yeah, that could happen when you have a technological difference, even though if they're both armored warfare.
The thing about the Master Warrior is, if your ranged weapon doesn't work anymore, you use your melee weapon. If your melee weapon doesn't work anymore, because you lost it or something, or it broke, you have a backup weapon, which is usually a shorter melee weapon, and then you still have hand-to-hand combat. And if you lose your limbs, well, then you do the Black Knight thing in Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
I remember that scene from Saving Private Ryan, the final battle where Tom Sizemore's character gets into a fight with a German soldier. They try to shoot at each other with their rifles. Then I think they tried to pull out then they threw their helmets at each other.
Yep.
and then they went for their pistols, and he just managed to kill the German soldier with his pistol.
Yeah, that was a tight scene.
That made me laugh where they both threw their helmets at each other.
Because it's such a human thing to do.
Yeah.
It's like you got what essentially a fucking rock in your hands. You throw it at the enemy.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going from artillery to interstellar starships. Okay.
Also, I do like that in the example of drones, he's showing a monument to a guy in full Viking dress up that shot down a drone with a fucking spear.
Okay.
Yeah, doesn't that kind of hit home the point that your technological advance is not enough?
All right.
Walkers, interstellar starships, elements are just more nails in the coffin of a master warrior.
What are you-
That's because none of them require that an entire life be dedicated.
Master race? Excuse me?
What did he say? Can you play that again?
Walkers, interstellar
Yeah.
starships, all these things and hundreds of other elements are just more nails in the coffin of a master warrior. That's
Oh, Master
Master
Warrior. I
Warrior.
thought he said Master Race. I was about to get really confused.
Yeah.
require that an entire life be dedicated to their mastery. By contrast, the easier they are for an untrained person to learn.
Are you
the
serious?
Are you saying it doesn't
fucking
take
idiot.
any experience to fire a smoothbore correctly?
Yeah, can you
Have you ever heard of easy to learn, hard to master?
ever heard of no training for I don't know, air combat pilot? Like just no training. He just gets in the cockpit, he's ready
Yeah.
to go.
Yeah, you know, weapons that are hard to learn, hard to master, they're not the things that you deploy in general onto the masses. What you want everyone to know is easy to learn how to
Yeah,
master.
can you imagine how complicated a starship is to fly, to maintain, to all the weapons, all the defenses, all the propulsion?
Just a
Yeah, but like,
fucking...
go to the basics. Stick, sword. Like, stick is simpler than sword. Stick, very easy to learn, but there is mastery with a stick. You can do amazing stuff with a stick that outdoes everyone who just picks it up and waves it around.
That reminds me
Strangely.
of that Chinese martial art that involves like punching a lot. I can't remember what it's called. And the masters of that say they say, well, I've trained this, but I really trained the spear, and that's how I get better at my punching art, because it came from warfare. And you see these huge, long Chinese spears. They're basically just like a bow staff times 2, and they're huge. And you're fighting like this massive piece of metal and wood, and you're balancing it and spinning it and making sure that you can get every angle if someone comes at you, and you have this huge reach. And it's also used against cavalry charges and whatever. And it's all attributed to that. And once you're skilled at that, then you're like, okay, now I can train in martial arts.
Yeah. And on that note, you know what these really in one-on-one in man-to-man combat really stupid jump spin kicks in Taekwondo are for? Because they're not for man-to-man combat. They are for the military use in kicking down a horse that is a cavalry horse that is coming at you. if you have no weapons anymore, you jump, spin, kick the horse's head, and that may make it fall over. So you have that. It requires mastery. It sounds really stupid, but it worked.
I mean, there's
Korean
other
horses also were smaller.
there's other martial arts that were designed. I think it was in Hokkaido. What was that? Kyokushin. Like your body becomes so strong that they train against like stone and trees and. Make
Oh God, I know. I over two core. What? How do I say that? Over two hops, two corners. I know someone who does that, and he's training his like this claw punch thing against trees, and he's just ripping out the bark with his bare hands.
Yeah, like his whole arms and fingers, they become so like basically clubs.
He doesn't have much feeling in his hand. He doesn't have much feelings in his hands anymore, in his fingers. But and the nails got so damaged that they basically turned into these yellow horn things.
Yeah, you see their knuckles. They're these massive pieces of cartilage that form on the knuckles.
Yeah, but that is the type of claw punch that can do these insane martial arts movie things to you, where it just he just sticks holes into you. But that's a very specific training by which you damage your own body to get that. And well,
yeah,
if you don't have much feeling in your fingers anymore, I think the fine motoric, like handwriting, will get lost.
Anyway, okay. Well, he is still on the technological argument here, which is getting weird. As if you need no training to pilot very sophisticated weapons. It's like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move on to our second element.
Oh, boy.
A strong but strict code of honor outlining the norms, rules, and responsibilities of the individual, usually as related to warfare. Now, in every conflict, there will invariably arise a moment in which a decision must be.
It's called rules of engagement.
Yeah,
If you don't have that, both sides will just plunge into darkness.
Yeah.
Made action that has the potential to shorten the conflict and upholding certain moral principles. And it should be stressed that when those...
No, it was both moral and strategic, because the main question was, okay, if we nuke them, are they going to be hardened or are they going to break? Because their big worry was that statistically, Japan people should starve during an American occupation, but that the people would fight them every step of the way for at least 50 years. They were unsure of whether the bomb would actually work out. That was the main problem.
It also requires that the enemy doesn't have the bomb.
That's
Because when the enemy has the bomb, then you have mutually assured destruction. You don't want that, so you don't use it. That's rule of engagement.
Same argument with chemical warfare, a bunch of other radioactive weapons, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, as long as the other faction doesn't use it, we don't even need to think about using it, because we are not the bad guys. The bad guys are the ones who throw the first stone or the first chemical weapon.
It's like the current conflict going on right now. Everyone is worried that white phosphorus is going to be used. Nobody has used it yet, as far as we're aware. Because that just opens the fucking can of worms for all kinds of uncomfortable warfare that both sides are not ready for. There are rules of engagement.
It would be a sign of escalation, and nope.
Yeah.
Don't escalate.
All right.
moral principle, needless cruelty or destruction. This is intentionally killing civilians and prisoners of war, torture, hostage-taking, misusing a flag of truce. These are all things that should not be acceptable, even on a battlefield during a time of war. But all
No. If you beat the other side, you take them as prisoners of war. Prisoners of war are technically hostages, especially the officers you want to have. Because you can get information out of them that doesn't require torture. Secondly, you have them as bargaining tools. That's great. First, you can get your prisoners of war back. Secondly, you can make other demands.
But all code of honor of the proud warrior race, personal glory and honor than it does with limiting carnage.
No.
Weapons and tactics might be deliberately discarded, not because
Those go
they
hand in
cause
hand.
unnecessary suffering, but because according to whatever code, they would damage the honor of whoever is using them.
What? Why the
He's
fuck-
he's really stuck in this fantasy garbage of I'm not gonna use the Obi-Wan Kenobi thing with the gun. So uncivilized.
Yeah, because the Jedi are fucking warrior monks. But why would you ever show the Romans and talk about how, some civilizations live or die depending on their refusal to use weapons? What else were those guys riding towards them going to fucking do? Pull up a fucking anti-material rifle!
Well, there's certain weapons we know, or techniques like biological warfare, that you just would not use nowadays. And he's trying to equate.
Hopefully.
He's trying to equate this like weak tribe that's like, no, we don't use the evil demons' anti-tank weapons because those are evil and we are good, or whatever. Like some antiquated concept of technology, as opposed to an atrocity. Like he's not saying why they don't use bombs all the time, why they're using tanks, or I'm sure if they had millions of dollars and had bombs, they'd use them. But
again, this is the idea of the noble savage is a really, really recent invention. Because fucking people before the gun, and even after the gun was invented, there was very few limits that people would not strive for to win a battle.
yeah, the flamethrower was a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was introduced and then removed, and then like, okay, you can't do that anymore. And there's all kinds of
Even
chemical weapons.
What kind of weapons is he referring to when he shows a bunch of tribals riding towards Romans? Is my question.
Exactly.
What weapon do these tribals have that they refuse to use?
And
Do
that's
they just
why-
have a bunch of Fallout weapons stored away in the backyard?
And that's why he has to talk about specific examples. And I gave the example of the crossbow. That I can't remember the force of it, but we're talking about a weapon that could snipe a person past 100 meters and break through armor. So those were outlawed for very specific reasons. So
For very obvious reasons.
yeah, I mean, we still had trench warfare. We still had siege warfare. So the rules were still there.
Well, you also had the Buddhist battle monks that had because I don't know the actual word for it, but the primitive boomstick, basically, like a one shot gun, more or less, that they would also use as a staff weapon.
Really?
Yeah, pretty cool stuff.
Cool.
I think it was in the Warring Kingdoms era. Sengoku Jidai was the name, I think.
Correct.
Where one fortress they couldn't besiege it properly, but it was pretty high up. And what they then decided to do, and that
Also,
was full of these.
They essentially besieged the temple for like 15 years before Oda Nobunaga went, all right, fuck you guys, and fuck everyone in that goddamn temple. Light it up, boys.
And not light it up. He couldn't light it up. What he did was he mowed down a forest, put all the trees around the mountain thing that it was built on, and then lit those on fire and basically smoked them out.
Yep. Choked people in their fucking homes.
All right. Here's
Wonderful.
Turmoil. Thanks again. Honor is a luxury afforded by those who know they will win. But winners lie, steal, cheat, and murder. Well, it's war. Humans and orcs will perceive honor differently. Yeah, see, this is the problem. He's just having these platitudes, and we're like, what's your example? What code of honor is preventing them from using an atrocity or a certain weapon at a certain time? And that was like agreed upon, like if you agree upon a fight, what you can and can't do.
I'd say his initial intro that he read everything, saw everything, that's simply a lie. And he's just going by a portion of the most popular shows, maybe books that he knows.
Jeez, who knows?
and generalizes from this very superficial fiction.
And we're
that
always
can only
speaking
go
about
wrong.
tribal groups in some stories that we don't know what he's talking about. And we're just like, what are you talking about? What examples?
Are you talking about the Fremen, the Zadoka? They're very different cultures. They're both warrior cultures in their own way.
Yeah.
Not necessarily honorable, but they have their own code of rules, if you will, if that is honored.
Yeah, you have to kill the tribe's
Maybe.
leader to control the tribe and all that jazz.
Yeah, that's societal laws.
Right, but they're still pretty brutal, right? So we would see that as like a blood duel. Like, holy shit, that's how you get leaders, get new leaders, new blood into the tribe is by killing the leader. Anyway.
The Unsullied had slipped past the Karl's army in the night while the Dothraki feasted.
Okay.
Karl Temo had many times their number and could easily have flanked the small force. But to the Dothraki, men on foot are fit only to be ridden down. 18 times the Horse Lords charged, and 18 times the Unsullied locked their shields, lowered their spears, and held the line against 20,000 Dothraki screamers.
That's... What? What? So, they thought that they could break them. And they failed.
Yeah, this is a common joke in, I think was the first season of Game of Thrones or whatever, where it's like the Dothraki are just these crazy wildmen on horses, and
They're basically Mongols on steroids.
They're wild men that just they have weird weapons and they have no armor and they just go around and raping and pillaging, and their tactics are all the same. It's like, okay.
And every wedding has at least 3 dead people, which is really weird.
It's a weird culture, and
It's a culture that doesn't make enough sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. There's just a bunch of wild men who rape and pillage, and you're like, that's like stupid Vikings. It's like, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and somehow they get armies together of 20,000 and more.
And
that civilization, I don't see how that civilization can even function.
Prophecy.
A dragon horde at the edge of an
desert.
army of 20,000 Dothraki screamers. What the fuck is this?
In a desert.
I love... isn't Robert Baratheon the fat guy's called? In season 1?
Yeah, that was the fat guy.
The fat king.
Yeah, he was great. We needed more of him. He didn't deserve to die. He was a great actor and great dialogue.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Give you an example.
This can be admirable, but while codes of honor might attempt to bring some kind of fairness or sense of responsibility to a conflict, they also have the potential to needlessly prolong it, wasting even more lives and resources.
What?
I am a Jem'Hadar.
No.
He is a Vorta. It is the order of things.
That's not a code of honor.
Do you really want to give up your life for the order of things? It is not my life to give up, Captain. And it never was.
Yeah, that's absolutely nothing to do with a code of honor. That is the societal structure and the belief system.
They were
not same thing.
They were created to be pawns of the founders, and they accepted that, and that they're born and bred to be that way.
Yeah, they are a slave race uplifted from a lesser species, and made dependent.
Independent, exactly. Yeah, Tetrasol White. So that has nothing to do with honor. That's just the way of how they live.
Like the Unsullied. The Unsullied are not an honorable warrior race. They are castrated men.
Slaves, yeah. And they are very well trained with a spear and a shield. And if they knew better, they would have different tactics. But again, defend with the shield, attack with the spear. That's what they know. While the Dothraki are like, charge at them. And that's it.
Again, we know that Martin does espionage and characters somewhat consistently.
Food.
Yeah, and food. He's great with food. He's great at food. But when it comes to describing fights, there's a reason why a character always gets knocked the fuck out before it starts.
There's a similar thing with Robert Jordan. The battles make no sense. It's the most boring shit ever written. God.
All right. So he could just be providing bad examples, what he's trying to get at. But he's doing it the opposite way. He has this dumb criteria he invented, and he's trying to find examples of where it's true. And the examples are dumb. Like, these are stupid, tribal. One of them has nothing to do with honor, and the other one is just a bunch of morons who don't know how to fight.
Tarrant brings up an excellent example in chat, Ternard, that is, honor and culture can't be intertwined. The Romans would like to have your phone number. They intertwine that shit a lot. Mm-hmm. If you surrender to the Romans, they would stick to their word and keep you safe. They would expect payment from your village or whatever, but they would keep you safe. They would take you as part of the Roman people.
And so they expanded so well. Same with the Greeks. They conquered, and Macedonia, Alexander of Macedonia, would put up Alexandrias everywhere he went because he conquered everything. So he just started putting all those replicas of Alexandria everywhere. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, but the Jem'Hadar are not an example of that.
No.
Together.
They have no culture. They are just a bunch of pawns to fire guns at the enemies of the founders.
Yeah, they're tools.
Yeah, you could argue that one scene with Worf where he was fighting the Jem'Hadar, and they respected Worf as a warrior because they saw how much endurance he had. And that beautiful scene where the guy's like, I cannot defeat this warrior. He's stronger than I am. And the Jem'Hadar leader just kills the guy who says that. So, like, wow, that was a really cool scene. But other than that, no, they're just a bunch of pawns.
Yeah, because the Jem'Hadar don't function as a society. They can't. They truly are only warriors. That's why that's the one thing they respect, because it's the one thing they understand.
Yeah, imagine you had no sense of food, and all you had was this drug that kept you going. And once that drug is gone, you're dead. You can't function anymore. So
also, Dark Lodge asks, wasn't George R. R. Martin super anti-war in real life? He did dodge the draft, so I guess you'd call him anti-war.
He did base some of his fight scenes and wars off a misshapen look, like a reversed version of Europe, if you flip the Westeros map. And I think the War of the Roses was a good example he was using for inspiration.
He took all interesting parts and characters from European history.
Yeah.
Not just the War of the Roses, that's just one thing that sticks out, but characters from various centuries to just put them together and have these interesting special needs children all play together in the same sandbox.
Now, if you want,
is an interesting idea, but
if you want to take George R. R. Martin's views and reflect upon his world, why is the Middle East full of Lovecraftian horrors, Martin? Is this where Africa is? Is this what you think is filled inside of Africa? Is just Lovecraft? Please explain.
Yeah, it is. It's why we don't go there.
Well, anyway, I'm getting kind of tired. I know this is going to go nowhere, but he's at his second point. I want to hear his third and fourth points at least.
And what happens if whoever the proud warrior race is fighting doesn't share that same moral code?
And vice versa. That's not a moral code.
Yeah. In his moral code is not relegated to how he fights. He fights to win.
Well, as
not
the
for
old
honor.
saying goes, stand in the ashes of a trillion
What?
dead souls and ask the ghosts if honor matters. The silence is your answer.
What?
As gruesome as it is.
Are you serious? You're quoting Javik? Like the lone
The guy who lost it. The guy who lost his entire race.
The guy who lost everything. He's like, well, I don't really care about all these primitives. Okay, so he has zero interest in all the cultures that have come before him or after him. And to say that all his species is dead, therefore what? Therefore he has no moral code? The guy doesn't shut up about how superior he is.
He's a humble individual.
His race was, how superior his race was. You know, the people who lost the war.
Yeah, he dominated every species he came across. He's still going on and on about it.
Oh, and there was that one thing where he says anybody that refused to join us in the fight, we just killed them. It's like, oh, you're not going to help us fight the Reapers? Then we're going to decimate your entire planet.
Yeah, the problem with the Protheans, as described by Javik, or at least as we interpreted, was that it was so one-sided and ubiquitous because they kept conquering everything, and the tactics and the methods they used weren't working.
The logic is put the target civilization before the choice. You can either be killed by the Reapers or by us. But if you want to, if you join us, then there is a chance you're not going to be killed by either.
Yeah.
Also, Lucas Coble says you don't have to have an African equivalent in a fantasy world. That was not what any of us said.
No. They retconned the Protheans, and they did some shenanigans with the DLC bullshit and all this other crap. So I'm not saying he's a bad character. It's just
go on.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it just feels like it was not tacked on literally, but it's like, oh, let's create Protheans. It's like, you did. We have them. And then it's a big retcon for the girl who devoted an entire life to studying them. Goes, oh, she was wrong, and so was everyone else in the entire galaxy. Because
I thought that was kind of funny.
I
always thought that was kind of funny because there was so much buildup on the Protheans. Like, oh, they were such a proud and noble and intelligent race, but then you meet Javik and you're like, oh, you guys are a bunch of assholes.
Yeah, and so that's not a retcon. That's rather a reality check.
No. That was the
because
visual.
that's
the way they had the statues in Ilos with the tentacles coming out of their mouths, and then he's a four-eyed anthropod looking thing. It's like they got all the body wrong, they got all the culture wrong, they got everything wrong. And Javik comes by like, yeah, we just want to kill Reapers. It's like, that's our entire culture now. It's like, oh, all right.
Hey, that's not a retcon. It's just an in-universe line, you see.
Okay.
We didn't have enough information, or we didn't have the right information.
Yeah, the writers from Mass Effect 1 got fired, and then Mac Walters comes in and goes, yeah, let's just make him Jamaican and angry.
You know what you should do instead of retconning that? Just have another character that shows yet a different side of that story that you find, and then, oh, okay, now it fits.
Yeah,
build on it. No, don't retcon. Build on it.
The idea was the bird race that also knew the Protheans, and they were part and parcel with them, or whatever. That would have been fine. But this is to say that quote is just like, you're talking about a guy who devoted his life to fighting the Reapers. I think morals and tactics and strategies are out the door when galactic genocide is the scale. We're not talking about honor anymore. We're not talking about, can we win this battle? It's like, is anything going to survive in the next cycle of destruction?
Yeah.
Does he even care?
Like the Reapers, you don't have room for that. Not against the Reaper.
There's no morals. There's no ethics. There's no rules. It's just, can you survive?
There's no room for honor. There's just destroy the Reapers at all costs, because if we don't, we are all dead. Mm-hmm. It's very different from, if we lose, we're kind of under new management.
Yeah.
With the Reapers, there is no new management.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a bad idea to bring that up with us. But
it's basically the same thing with the Nazis. It's why honor is out of the window, because they wanted to genocide people.
Now, you see, Wisp, you don't understand, Wisp. The Germans are the Nazis were a proud warrior race because they refused to adopt the Sturmgewehr. They saw it as an unfair tactical weapon.
Oh boy. Okay, let's not get into the mustard gas talk.
It's such a stupid fucking argument.
Having a flexible sense of morality is often useful in warfare.
How?
And sometimes necessary in hastening its end.
How?
Was eradicating the Formic race necessary for the survival of Earth?
What's the Formic race? Anyone know?
That's Ender's Game? Isn't it? Isn't this from the movie Ender's Game?
That does not look like the scene that plays out in Ender's Game, which is why I'm confused.
Doesn't
I don't know. It's I never saw the movie, so I don't.
I read-
that looks vaguely.
I never got around reading the book.
The
It is based on a book, and it's I think it's somewhere on my shelf.
Well, he fights this spider-like race at the end, and he's attacking their planet, not Earth. So
Yeah, in spaceships where they're fighting, they don't have this perspective. Is why I'm wondering what is this referencing?
Yeah, and the big twist with Ender's Game was he thought it was a simulation.
yeah,
Yeah.
He didn't actually think he was actually fighting. He had no idea.
which is
that he was.
bizarre. Like you're doing it for years and years, and your teachers or instructors of the military are like, "Yeah, this is another simulation, number 205, and you've been doing so well." It's like, this is a really long training part. Like, shouldn't you use us for the actual war?
Yeah, the thing is, for one, it keeps the possible emotional attachment or poisoning of the strategist in question out. If he keeps believing that, if he keeps believing it's just a simulation and it's not real people, so you make more careless decisions.
But you're a kid, so you're going to be excited.
Yeah, but
anyway.
you're a disturbed kid growing up like that anyway.
But
so
everyone who's on your team is a kid too, so it's like, all right, they're all different emotional states, and
It's Ender's Game is a can of worms in and of itself. Let's see what other arguments he has.
Fair enough.
Or other examples he has.
Yeah.
Want the discussions deciding that question rather than some ancient code of honor.
Example.
A strict code of honor, especially one based around personal glory, represents a possible weakness that just isn't present in the most other
Okay,
societies.
this is pissing me off. This is so dumb. If he's talking about a professional code of honor, he's talking about a democratic government or system of beliefs, which is the second regime on Plato's 5 regimes, which means it's the second most noble and virtuous, which is the virtue of courage. So you're putting your life on the line to defend your people from whatever. That's not antiquated. It's not some stupid way of thinking. It is a very difficult way of living your life and organizing your society and waging war. So
wherever you go, you represent Rome.
Greece, Rome, yeah, whichever the democratic view of virtue is, yeah.
That is something that is inside German law, because when Germans commit crimes against German law in other countries, we're still bound by German law and will be tried for those breaches of German law.
Yeah. All right.
That's kind of.
I just don't like his wording there, because it sounds as if it's this retarded concept of honor, which is antiquated, that no one else believes in, and it's like, what? No. Because some guy has a laser gun and you got a spear or something.
All that, warriors. Too narrow-minded, no subtlety. And worse, we fight for hopeless courses. Honor. Honor's killed millions of people, hasn't saved a single one.
Alright, so now on to our third tenet. A decentralized governmental structure in which rival familial clans or tribal...
That is so specific. What is he talking about? A decentralized government?
Well, let's hear his examples. I
think he means a feudal state.
Structures precedes any national identity. For whatever reason, the proud...
He's using the same examples!
Why would you use
Star Trek Discovery Klingons? Yeah, it's great. Great example. Oh my god.
Warrior race is often divided into great houses, clans, tribes, kindreds, or whatever else. These groups...
Oh, he finally mentioned Mandalorian. Whoever was that asked about the Mandalorian, he mentioned the Mandalorian.
About fucking time.
Mandalorian?
Mike, when the fuck did you come here?
Mike is always here.
He just takes a break from all the crazy so he could keep sane. Anyway.
State, with their own governments, militaries, and civil wars between them are often a fundamental aspect of how political control over a greater nation is maintained or reformed. In some...
No, he's giving you an example right here where Mandalorians are walking towards one another.
So they fight each other in multiple civil wars? I thought
they still have a law that governs them all, by which they abide.
So
this is the way.
they're all tribal. They're all a bunch of nomads.
Yeah, but that is not all of Mandalorian society. That is just the warriors who can't be sustained without actual civilians.
Right. Okay.
It's just that at this time in the timeline, there's just not much left of Mandalorian society.
But this is like arguing, well, a civilization with 2 billion is a lot better than a civilization of 200. You're like, yes, I agree. The 2 billion will probably survive a lot better than the 200 warriors that walk around like morons, getting into fights. It's like, yes.
Also, we still have this today. Like internation rivalries are still a thing. We still cut our countries up into states, which consider their state to be superior or inferior.
Yeah, and some even hate each other. The subculture is a misleading term in that sense.
Yeah,
but
you could argue.
We hate each other.
You could argue.
And then goes down to the cities within said region. And then with those towns, you have the individual parts of that town, where everyone hates that part of the town.
Well,
yeah, people in the big cities look down on the rural people, and rural people hate the big cities because they dominate their politics.
And
unless you're smart enough to make your city states, and then they can't bother your rural countries.
Well,
so the Americans, please just turn New York and Chicago and all that other shit into separate states, and the rest of the states they're free.
Well,
They'll
it's
be
still
free.
based on hegemonic rules at whether it's democratically done or, I don't know, they kill a leader and the next leader takes power. There's going to be a set of rules from the previous generation or previous lawmakers, and those are going to be changed. And if they're not changed, then how does society grow then?
Okay, now the argument. I'm looking in the chat, and Mario Jr. said, well, the first question is, Dark Metal says, I like how almost all the proud warrior races he's showing off are fictional, to which Mario responds, that's because all the real ones ended up dying out because the warrior society is dumb. Please, I beg you, give me a historical warrior society that fulfills these tenets. Please, I beg of you.
In the previous one, he says, look up 2 clans in Battletech or something.
Oh, really? Battletech. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Listen, I don't think you want to reference the clans, which were they were made into clanners by an actual schizophrenic, like a mentally ill person, that read Mao. I don't think you want to use those as a counterpoint to the proud warrior race trope.
Yeah, if we look at like the Romans, which is not the oldest civilization, but it's fairly old. It's gone for a pretty long time, and was the foundation of so many things in culture and economics and warfare, whatever. So they had a bunch of tribes. I mean, they had a bunch of warring states. So, I mean, like, did technology get in the way? Did they have too much pride? Like, did they have too many rules or laws? No, they expanded too far, like any other civilization that expands too far.
Rather, what makes warrior culture, if you want to call it that, disappear, it is the lack of outside enemies and the development of a stable society.
I think
when you don't have that, you don't have need for any of that.
Well,
and it's just yes, when you just have these small family, tribe, clan groups, yeah, they will all have their own little military, which will be a relatively large portion of them, because there is just so much danger out there with all these other tribes that have all that. When you just develop to the higher level nation, then that's not needed, and you're more likely part of the general populace than of the battle-ready populace.
But you still have a military culture and an active military in whatever state, whether it's extended or retracted. It's like, okay, the society, the Romans figured out, okay, you have to have a military, you have to have farmers, you have to have the clergy, you have to have the politicians, you have to have all these sections of civilization to keep things going. And it's like, but they have their culture. They also have their laws. They have their rules of conduct for war, and they got really good at that. And they learn how to make the aqueduct and keep the crime level, like all these things. So it's like, yeah, did the civilizations develop? Yes or no? Why not? Oh, they ran out of food, or their leaders went crazy and started sacrificing their people because they thought that sacrificing was the way to make food. Like there's all these other things that happened that have nothing.
Trust the science.
All these things have nothing to do with these weird tenets of his, because the Greco-Roman cultures were warlike. It's like that's like one part of it. Anyway, he's using fiction, and I'm just like, okay, sure, Star Wars, not exactly the most fleshed out universe, but
no, it is so fleshed out that it contradicts itself 15 times over.
Well, the EU, if you want to follow it, I guess, yeah.
Cases, this is a near perfect representation been refined into something else.
Feudalism?
In the worst case.
Oh, so now you want to quickly bring up Halo and then quickly forget about it, just as the Super Chat mentions Halo. Good job.
Feudalism does not kill itself out. It got superseded by other forms of government. It didn't die.
Feudalism corresponded to our ability to move around quickly. Without a centralized government, which is what Rome was built upon, and is why it took so fucking long for them to expand. Because they realized that the Roman culture could not survive without the roads. Medieval culture did not have that kind of expansive reach that the Romans had.
And some would argue...
Which is why the British colony was basically its own state. It was part of the Roman Empire, but it was so disconnected that it was behind in technology by 20 to 50 years.
Well, some would argue that the feudalistic elements of civilizations are still around, even if they're not as relevant because they don't have as much power.
They are.
Yeah.
That was what I was bringing up earlier, is that we still slice us up into Sjælland, for example, or Jylland. Like, these are still states. These are still counties. These are still areas of influence in which minor towns make up these counties. We are still running on a feudal system, whether our democratic or republic or monarchies or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, it's kind of weird when you look at Europe as a whole and say, yeah, they still have these duchies and kingdoms which are not as politically relevant because we have, as you said, democracies and parliaments and what have you, but they're still there. We still have Canada still has fealty to the crown in the UK.
And the US, I would argue, is probably one of the most relevant examples of a proud warrior race that we have today, because they still cut themselves up into different states.
Right.
They all view themselves as being larger or greater as part of a larger war machine. Have
you ever looked up the training regimen and the dedication of the honor guard to the grave of the unknown soldier?
I have not. No.
That is absolutely mind blowing. Like, there are short documentaries about that. Like, look that up. It's absolutely insane. If that is not an honor culture, I don't know what is.
And they take that stuff very seriously, as should any society. Hell, my own has mandatory conscription for any man in the country. Does that make us proud war society? Does that make us not proud war society because we're still around? I'm not following this argument.
Yeah. Here's the Copperell. Thank you, sir. Halo disproves all these guys' arguments. We're only on the third tenet, as he's describing. And they, as I said before, it feels like it's a child trying to describe, in general, politics of war. And you're just like, nope, that's not how it worked. Anyway, we're going to go to the fourth one because I'm getting tired of this guy. This
is that guy and the throne. That's my mood right now.
Yeah, I just killed the necromorph, and I'm like, oh, Get me out of here.
In the worst cases, only by killing the current ruler can a new one take their place. The proud warrior race is not the only kind of society to have this element present, but when combined with their other defining aspects, it aggravates even further the existing issues within this.
The Klingons had a council. You do not just become head of the council by killing the head of the council. There are other ways for that. It's basically the Klingons had a sort of democratic system going on there. It's similar to how the Nordic Germanic tribes had, and the Celts before the Romans Romanized them. But yeah, go on.
Kind of civilization. What are these issues? Whether in wartime or peace, the potential of any civilization is going to be closely linked to its internal unity. A coherent national identity that can create solidarity across even diverse groups, a strong political order that can accommodate or suppress internal divisions, and a belief in the legitimacy of state institutions are all effective tools a nation can rely on.
Tools?
You just described fascism.
Why is he viewing?
You just described Mussolini's fascism. Congratulations.
He's looking at civilization like as if like here's the the military part and here's the political part and here's this. It's like that's a very bad look at civilization if you want to think of it that way.
I mean, he shows a fitting background cinematic for that. So Viva la Duce or whatever you say.
But when powerful families are competing with the national government, these tools can't be used to their full effect, because they're inherently dangerous to these different tribes, clans, or houses. The weaker the national government...
I'm not following here. When you're talking about feudalism, no, the lords of the land are swearing fealty to the king or the monarch. Whatever the monarch says to go to war, they go to war.
And they swear fealty to hold up the values of said king. And so if he says for local religion goods, then you hold up those values with your fucking life if need be.
Yeah, and if the king breaks those rules, they usurp the king and get a new one. It's very efficient.
That's the reason why everything returns to some form of fucking monarchy.
Well, some form of centralized power that there's the one guy in charge or there's the body politic in charge and they go, okay, these are the guys in charge of the rules. They're the ones who control the military, and we support that military.
And they're the ones responsible, and when they fuck up, we just switch them out for the new ones.
Exactly. Oligarchy is fantastic. Anyway.
These strong. And if a nation is in the middle of being invaded, it would be disastrous for their armed forces to be split between a number of rival groups, each with their own doctrines, strategies, and equipment.
Example.
If some of these groups...
Example. Oh, I could bring up a fucking example. Remember my previous comment about the Turks bringing cannons to Europe and how well that went?
I know, but I understand that, but he's talking about, well, you shouldn't have division among your federal body, and you're like, I agree.
That's then if you don't have division among your federal body, you're not a federation.
Well, look at
the point of a federation is that the members of that federation have certain levels of autonomy. That's a subsidiary principle. Because if you don't allow that, you are just eroding their respective cultures.
Oh, well, that's happening today. I mean, that's normal. So when he's referring to a military,
no. Just because it's happening today doesn't mean it's normal. It's a vile imperialist move. It's not something that should happen.
Okay, but he's referring to military attack on a country, for example. And
yeah, but that is less of a problem with the example would be the Greek city-states or Rome itself with the gentiles, their clans and their clan families.
That's a bit different, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's basically the same sort of division. Whether you have several states in your federation or these giant clans that make up your the populace of your city-state, all these clans are represented in the government and they make decisions together. The same when it goes for the Greek city-states.
And you still have division, even in Canada. We have division with Quebec and Alberta. That happens all the time. But when it comes to military operations, like Canada's being assaulted or whatever country is having internal strife, it's like, oh, we got to federalize. We got to figure out how to come together.
Yeah, and your nation, your federal nation is usually united because, we don't want to be attacked.
Right.
So let's defend. Let's all work together to defend. That's one of the many reasons you have a federation.
Yeah, but he's arguing that in the past or whatever example he's coming up with, this is all theoretical to him, that, you can't have division with people not wanting to fight a war. And you're like, really? When was this? Examples. Give me your argument here that this...
Okay, so we should exterminate all the hippies.
Well, whatever proud warrior race example he's coming up with, that some of them aren't going to be proud. Some of them aren't going to be like, let's not go to war. Okay, so we die? Like, what's... I don't know. Like, I want to know what he's talking about. This is getting kind of weird now. It's like he's describing details, and he's saying, well, in some cases, some of these proud warriors aren't proud warriors. And you're like, oh, so are they going to preserve? Or are they going to be pacifists and not fight wars and run away? Like, what are you doing? Making a new country? Like, what's happening here? So I don't know. Like, I want like some weird, like the Sardaukar have like internal strife or something, and the emperor gets dethroned and Muad'Dib takes the throne, like something like that. Like, okay, fine. There's a fight for power. I think that's what he means.
With each other and maybe even refuse to work alongside one another, then the problems get even worse.
Oh, you mean like the Japanese Navy and the Japanese Army? Don't tell me. How could that happen? They were so advanced. They were using gunship. They were using warships. They were using planes and tanks and cavalry. How could this happen with such an advanced society that was not a proud warrior race to have division?
It's even that some of these clans or houses might be willing to work with the enemy if they think their standing might be improved by the defeat of the central government.
Please.
This is not how a stable nation functions.
I agree.
This brings us to our last tenet.
What? No!
Disproportionate devotion.
When you have division with your group... Yes.
You think he's going to bring you substance?
Yeah. When you have division in your group falls apart. I agree. Can you please provide a cultural or historical example? Here's our
even a fictional one.
So diversity needs to be destroyed so that you can stop the division in your group, because divide and conquer destroys you. Yeah. So everybody needs to be the same. Everybody needs to bootstrap in line. You are a fascist, man. You are a fascist.
I understand now, because one point I was going to make earlier, but forgot, because I didn't know if it was going to be relevant or not, was he brought up on the list of our societies, he mentioned pacifist collectivists.
What?
Or collective pacifists.
Okay.
As one of the potential societies that will be victorious in the end over others.
What?
Yes, that is in the list. If you go back, it says collective pacifists.
Don't fight. Let them kill us. And
I don't remember where exactly on the map it was in the south western part of China when the communists took over. There were some of the you always have some anarchist strand that goes that tries to establish an anarchist state somewhere, and some were successful in making that and holding that for a while. I think it was a couple of months or maybe even 2 years, and then the Maoist communists came over once they were stabilized. They came over and said, like, "Hey, you have a pacifist anarchist nation here that you built that works, yeah? Oh, cool. Yeah, we're in charge now. What? No, we're our own nation. You need to respect us." Like, why? We have the guns. Fuck off. The pacifist will always lose to the bully.
All right. Let's hear the fourth one and call it a day, because this is hurting my brain.
Towards war at the societal level that comes at the expense of economic, industrial, scientific, cultural, or
how can you have a society without this?
For this one, we need to look at the concept of total war.
What?
This is a kind of warfare.
You don't need a reverence for war in order to have a warrior culture. a honor warrior culture. They can be based on defense.
The total war concept was, as he's describing, in the 18th century. So therefore, your tribal examples of warring, I don't know, Greco-Roman states don't apply. Or
no, you see, for Switzerland to defend itself, all the people of Switzerland, as a collective, go into the mountains and jerk off to the unholy pagan deities in there, and then they're ready for war.
I don't know.
But they already are in the mountains.
They're total war by running away. It's like, okay, I guess.
And they all have their guns from the military because they keep it after the military service.
Yeah, they need to keep up that pagan religion of worshipping warfare to defend themselves.
Okay.
Absolute necessity,
what kind of fantasy has this guy read?
Anyway, Total War, 18th century. I guess that's a thing. Here we go.
But was really solidified as a concept during the 2 world wars.
Whoops.
What?
All right, let's see what he has to say.
Okay.
Yes, less than 100 years to work, well, a little over 100 years to work with the history. Let's see what he comes up with.
I don't think was any accident. By the 20th century, the methods by which a war might be fought had grown so all-encompassing that basically nothing was excluded. Every resource, every piece of infrastructure, every person had become a tool necessary to the war effort. Really? This was the new standard by which...
That was technically always the case before. It's just that you have this, through industrialization, you have all of this much more intertwined, much more obvious, and the production levels that need to keep going are on much higher levels. That just makes it all more obvious. The whole total war thing of not just armies against armies, but peoples against peoples, where an entire nation, an entire people was blamed. Not just, oh, their army did this or their leaders did that. No, it's the entire people. That was the new thing with the world wars.
Yeah.
No, they still had that in ancient antiquity. Remember Carthage?
Well, what Carthage?
Yeah, but those were exceptional moments.
Well,
with the world wars, you have this whole thing with this collectivized shame, collectivized guilt. It's been going ever since. Well, we haven't lost it. That's part of the democratization process, because now that everybody's represented with the government, that means the decision of the government in the name of the people means all the people are responsible. That means all the people are guilty. That's the insane thing that happened, that derives from that.
I do recall a lot of the stories from my grandparents when they were around about World War II and how everyone was involved in either producing munitions or whatever the case was, whether it's desk work. Everything was related to the war in some capacity for a few years, not obviously decades, but for the time that they were enlisted to work. So the concept of blitzkrieg was to attack industry, to bomb certain factories as opposed to civilian centers. Whether that was accurate or not, who knows? That's, you're talking about dropping bombs from certain kinds of planes manually. So there are some elements of yes, we're going to war, everyone's involved, but this is completely irrelevant when you're talking about all the previous tenets he was referring to, because it is very specific to World War I and II in his examples. So he's stretching this weird tribal mentality of honor and warfare to now an entire country going to war against another.
You can also argue that because the warrior culture, the noble warrior culture, is gone. That's why the wars turn so ugly, because nobody feels honor bound anymore by rules of engagement. That's a big problem. So maybe we should have kept that.
Well, yeah, but you could even look at really bad rules of engagement or really bad strategies that have nothing to do with honor or the rules of what to do. Like the Battle of the Somme is a classic example of really stupid strategy from was it the British general? And this was the premiere of the Canadian introduction to the war, and just like hundreds of thousands of people died. It was insane. And they promoted this guy to keep fighting. So
remember, the Germans could have bombed the singular road they had to the Somme and never did. There was a single road heading to the Somme that was ripe for exploitation.
Well, there was
might still need.
There were more battles after the Somme or during the Somme as well. So it was kind of this ongoing struggle.
Well, it's like that. It's like that last health potion. Maybe you still need it.
Maybe
later.
you still need those 30,000 health potions.
Oh Christ!
Anyway,
large scale, because anything less than a total war would be disastrous for the side that couldn't fully commit. But ironically, most examples of the proud warrior race are less suited to fighting a total war because of their rigid consideration of what does and doesn't contribute to the war effort. They only consider the obvious.
What?
Medical research isn't...
Oh, he's saying that you're stupid to commit to total war.
You fucking idiot.
So he's reducing this back to tribal mentality as opposed to...
He's reducing this to badly written sci-fi.
How did we get from World War II to now we're going to tribal, now we're going to Star Trek?
Council, I am for whoever I can.
That doesn't sound very honorable.
Given the choice between honor and saving lives, I choose the latter.
Perhaps you should ask your superiors to steal a genome sequencer, We're not going to be able to map the virus without the proper technology.
To them, only the jobs directly involved with fighting on the front line are honorable and worth investing in. This is a narrow view incompatible with total war.
That was not what the scene was about, though.
The Klingon warrior scientist was like,
elaborate for the dumb guy.
I choose life, not war or honor or whatever. What does that have to do with
Which you could consider is the more honorable thing.
Life is a good start, and then honor can come second. That's a pretty good idea, yeah.
War.
Honoring the sanctity of life is pretty honorable.
Scientists, engineers, these are all professions with limited...
Oh, another Halo reference. Enjoy, Corporal. It's not gonna last.
...and campaigns, but that all nevertheless contribute enormously when mobilized under the doctrine of total war. And those careers are just the start of a very long list.
I don't think he knows what total war really means and where it came from and when it actually started.
This is so... He's assuming that these, primitive tribal warring states that have an antiquated sense of honor, that don't adapt to technology, who are stuck in the Bronze Age, must contribute everything in their entire civilization to fighting.
And they think that that's only worth it when you are at the front line.
And they never adapt, they never train for new technologies or tactics or whatever. They're stuck in the Stone Age or whatever.
And they don't dedicate they're not capable of dedicating their entire society to warfare correctly.
Therefore they die out, or whatever the argument is.
This is what happens when you base your comprehension of reality solely on the very reduced characters so that you can actually have them in a story in science fiction and fantasy.
This is, I don't even know.
This is how you know this is a pseudo intellectual.
No, it's worse than that. It's not even
midwit. Fucking midwit.
He is just rambling. He's just, here's something I believe in. Point 1. Here's some clips. Here's point 2. I don't know what to make of this, but let's move on to point 3. And you're like, okay, honor is important? Gets you killed? What? Because Klingon bad? Like, I don't get it.
Sophistry.
Anyway, let's just go to the next minute and call it a day.
Just as a job out of a hat and look at meteorologists.
Okay.
What? Okay, let's see where this goes.
I think most proud warrior races would say that studying the weather is no fit job for a
What?
warrior.
No, of course it's super important.
You don't think?
What do you?
You want to know what the battlefield's gonna be like when you're fighting? You fucking idiot.
The weather is not important to when the Germans try to invade Russia? You don't think that was key?
Tomorrow it's gonna rain.
It's gonna snow. It's freezing.
How do we incorporate that into our strategy?
The Romans.
Will there even be a battle tomorrow?
Oh,
the enemy will probably not attack if that and that weather happens.
Our tanks are stuck in the mud. What do we do? I don't know.
The Romans.
How did Japan got saved a couple times by the from the Chinese? Oh, a fucking typhoon swept them away.
Twice.
Twice. And the joke about that is Japan therefore thought, the gods protect us. We don't need to develop further. Because they didn't even have any contact with the outside world. And had those forces landed, they would have devastated Japan.
And even then,
it's beautiful.
The fucking weather was so important to warrior societies such as Rome, who refused at one point to fight Hannibal because they thought that the weather was a bad omen, and cows were talking.
Yeah. Anyway,
has this guy read Sun Tzu?
No,
this guy could not possibly understand what the hell Sun Tzu.
He wants to talk about warrior cultures and hasn't read Sun Tzu. Fuck off.
Yeah, well.
Book of Five Rings? What am I asking?
Yeah, no.
Oh, now you're getting into the obscure shit for these normies.
Yeah, no.
Mm-hmm.
He just likes reading and watching his figurines. Anyway, we're almost done. I'm not going to go too much longer. This is getting really stupid.
Almost done. We're less than halfway through.
I'm okay with 14 minutes. I'm pretty happy with that.
All right.
Meteorology.
2 minutes of insanity.
Guys.
We need after that. Let him finish this point, and then we're gonna watch his last 2 minutes of insanity.
Significant rainfall on the way, and for our area. So oh my gosh, that was creepy. Oh, of course he had to be right on my head. Oh, I just don't like that. Okay, I gotta move it.
What is this?
And yet, right around the Second World War, military meteorology drastically.
Oh my god, dude, what are you contradicting yourself? Shut the hell. Oh. What is
right, so you want to reference meteorology. It's about how warrior cultures don't respect meteorologists. By the way, we didn't start respecting meteorologists until World War II.
It's total war, guys.
This guy just put up the most stupid straw man to just kick it down a second later?
All right, 27 minutes. Let's just hit play and hope it's an advertisement.
Oh, look, Mass Effect again.
Oh god, let's quote freaking Javik. We'll never win by conventional means. All right, I don't know my. Try to hit play.
Rather than personal glory.
Oh no!
Though so much of their society is dedicated to warfare, it's not because they are actively seeking it out. Rather, they want to be prepared for war should it arrive unexpectedly. What the martial state has that the proud warrior race does not is a more thorough understanding of how wars are fought and won, an understanding that can evolve and refine as technology advances. The proud warrior race, by contrast, is stuck in the past.
How?
It accepts any new ideas that it can fit into its society and rejects the ones that don't, even when they might be entirely beneficial.
Such as?
It is rigid, outdated, and doomed to fail.
Which?
Examples.
Is he saying the Reapers are a proud warrior race?
I don't know.
He must have been talking about the Protheans. He must have been.
Oh god.
He must have been.
Well, we did skip ahead, so I guess there's a good chance that we missed some context there. But even then,
All right. Well, I'm done with the video. I don't want to go any further.
All right, then.
That's all.
Fair enough.
Gobbled.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Let's just go to memes and get some joy out of this.
Yep.
He's describing order.
He's just fight. All right. We got Cowboy Bebop. Me on my way to remind aliens they're not made in God's image. All right. Video I will play later. I am
Avatar.
Sturgeon.
Oh, it's the I'm a Surgeon meme.
Okay. French national anthem, the melody, the lyrics. Oh. What's the lyrics like? I don't know.
French noises.
Okay.
We're all going to die and stand head high. Also, walk into machine gun fire. Something, wait.
Oh my god. Biology teacher, where is the frog we wanted to dissect? That one French kid. Oh. Oh, I'm not going to read that, but it's a good comic. Gun Fu. This is what happens when you search up Gun Fu. Oh, wow. Interesting. The Martial Art of Paintball.
By Terry Adams.
There's no need for physical strength. I'm an intellectual. The society that separates its scholars from its warriors will have its thinking done by cowards and its fighting by fools. What a great quote.
I think that was Aristoteles.
Yes.
You don't need to make a 40k meme here.
Well, it looks better. I was about to play that.
Pretty dope.
It's a minute
That's
long.
a fucking minute long, but it's great.
Yeah. The song that tells a simple eternal battle between robot and monkey. Oh, that's a song. Cool. And The First of Us. Oh. Har. When you're the only one on the third tenet. Yeah, that was a weird.
Did he? I thought I was mishearing, but did he say tenant?
Tenet. Yeah.
Tenet. No. That's tenet.
That's what he said.
No. He said tenant.
Well, he
as
pronounced it
road.
that way, but he wrote it
Yeah.
Or at least the subtitles.
What is wrong? Are your tenants paying rent?
The spell check didn't bother. I was like, yeah, it's fine. Proud warrior races are bound for extinction. What the hell?
I don't know what that is.
That?
I don't know either.
He's got a pillow, the katana, the fucking the Redditor fedora.
And the Cheetos.
Milady. I imagine this is what the guy sounds like. Say, proud warrior races are bound for extinction.
Oh god. Yeah, that was a weird video, guys. That was just rambling fanboyism. I think I'm smart because I watched a bunch of shows that had
completely pretentious,
weird shit.
Well, I'm glad that he essentially argued that proud warrior races are bound for extinction. Go for fascism instead.
I'm a bit confused on that total war argument he was trying to make at the end there. I was like, what does that have to do with the tribes of ancient Greece? Anyway, boy, I don't think I ever want to cover that guy again. That was just like stupid. Like if you're a stupid kid in grade 8 and you forget learning and you just watch video games and play whatever, you're like, dude, there's more to life than thinking you're a war scholar or something.
Yeah. When I first stumbled upon this channel a long time ago, I first thought, oh, this looks professionally done, and then shortly after it was, I came to the realization, this is just bullshit. What the hell? Well, I don't even remember what that was about. Oh god.
I remember them trying to describe, I think, it was vampire accounts from Warhammer Fantasy, and it's one of the most boring videos I've ever consumed. I say consumed because there is no information there that you wouldn't get out just reading the fucking wiki. And the wiki would be more enthralling.
But it doesn't have cool animations.
Yeah, well, I think I'd rather have some tea and have a nap. That was really painful.
That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah,
I must say, I prefer the woman that claimed that Japan deserves to be colonized. I preferred her video.
The previous one we watched about socialism, feminism, and a bunch of other nonsense with anime.
Oh, that's super insane stuff.
Post-feminism, post-Trumpism.
Yeah,
post-feminism.
That one was more fun.
More fun and less Well, no, my brain's still
more
pretty much-
coherent than red.
Okay, yeah, I'll give it that much, but it was still. I just got out of university and I don't know what to do with my life kind of vibe. So,
Well, how would you know what to do with your life after you've been so brainwashed that you don't even know what life is?
But to get a philosophy degree and to study feminism makes no sense to me. I'm like, how does that even connect?
Yeah, because it's not philosophy. You have a sophistry degree now.
You could possibly study social science and you might learn about feminism, but you can't learn feminism through philosophy. There's nothing there. Like, how do you even connect
If you learn philosophy, you could not become a feminist
right
through philosophy, because you would very quickly realize that it is internally completely inconsistent, it is illogical, it is irrational, it makes no sense, and therefore cannot be philosophy.
Yeah, no one considers anything in the past 60 years to be even remotely related to philosophy, like Foucault and all that other crap. Like, you wouldn't even touch that stuff. It would be in passing. It might be an elective, but it wouldn't be an entire degree. So anyway, yeah.
I go metal. Come on, guys. She was fun. She was a great fun to enjoy.
She was painful. Anyway, yeah. Let us take a break. Let's call it a day. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. I wasn't expecting that. I'm still waiting for our. Is it Tuesday or Wednesday that Bears is going to be available?
One of the two.
Because a lot of people aren't available on Tuesday and Wednesday except for Bears, so it's like we're making the exception. It's like, all right, we'll bring him on.
Just ask him again which of the 2 days, and then we can plan for that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, guys. Please don't ever recommend a video of his again unless it's like, oh,
what a pity.
Well, maybe there's one that's so bonkers it's funny. Like, that might be fun. But this one's it's just so dumb. It's like he thinks he knows what he's talking about. He's like, no, you're wrong. On so, like, historically, fictionally, like, these examples just don't work, and his criteria was all over the place. So,
and the pacifists are going to win over the militarists.
Sure, yeah, that's always happened. Yeah, that's how history works, for sure.
With the power of pacifism.
You sit back and let the tanks roll over you. You'll be fine.
I will pacifist you to death.
We will play squash. We will drive the tanks. Okay, sure. Anyway, thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great one. Bye-bye.